What's up, Whisper Nation? It's Monday, September 14th. You're listening to episode 114 and the official Week 1 reaction episode, Johnny, of the Fantasy Whispers. I am Big Travie. You can find me at Big Travie TFW on Twitter. As always, I'm joined by my right-hand man here, Johnny Game Time Hicks. You can find him on Twitter at Johnny_Game Time. What's up, Johnny? How was your Week 1? How's it hanging? We got a Monday night slate tonight. We're not out of the woods yet, but how you doing so far?
So far, so good on most leagues. It was a pretty solid day of football. There were a couple of unusual things that had happened as far as scoring, but we'll talk about that today. Whether you need to, jump in on that hype, whether you should let somebody else go after that. We'll talk about that stuff. But overall, Travis, it was a very, very enjoyable day for fantasy football all the way around. What do you think? How'd you do?
For the most part, it was pretty good. I was excited to see the Packers put on an awesome performance.
Mm-hmm.
I was excited to see Devontae Adams. I was excited to see in that game Adam Thielen. This was what we kind of figured would happen. There's a lot going on in this offseason, so it was nice to see them shake the rust off. There might be a couple weeks of this where they shake the rust off a bit. There were a couple snoozers. There were a couple snoozer games, but for the most part, it was just great to have football back. All right, so if you want to follow the show, you can do so on Twitter at TF Whispers. You can also find us here on YouTube at the Fantasy Whispers. Give us a like and subscribe there. And you can see us over on Instagram at the Fantasy Whispers. You should definitely visit the website, thefantasywhispers.com. We're going to have your waiver wire articles, your matchup articles. Our latest episodes are up there. And a link to Patreon where you can support the show and gain access to a ton of bonus content. Patreon works like this, guys. $1 gets you the audio for our matchup columns. $5 gets you the video for our matchup columns, and you're going to want to get those because we dive through every fantasy relevant player in every single NFL game, so you guys can get going on that. So head on over to patreon.com, search the Fantasy Whispers today. Johnny, let's get rocking and rolling here. If you're new to the show, first, I would like to ask you if you could like and subscribe. That would go a big way. It helps us grow the channel. It's big for us, especially as we try to give you guys something each and every day here on YouTube, especially. News and notes, Johnny, rocking through this.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to take a look at, the Dallas Morning News reported after the Sunday night game. Blake Jarwin left that game grabbing his knee, and they believe he did tear his ACL there, Johnny. So this was a popular, stepmom Lauren, I feel for her. This was one of her favorite late round tight ends. We have a few people that we know drafted Blake Jarwin as a late round tight end. So what are you thinking here? This goes right in line with the strategy we said. We hope that you drafted or picked up two late round, and this is kind of how that works. So you mitigate that loss a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it does suck because Jarwin was a guy that definitely was on that breakout candidates list, and you definitely saw that there was a little bit of a connection there between Jarwin, and they were talking about it on the stream. They were talking about how Jarwin should be heavily involved. With Jarwin out now, I do expect that CeeDee Lamb now will get more. Yes, they have another tight end that came in, and he was pretty good. He played solid, but I do expect those targets now to go over to CeeDee Lamb. So I think that CeeDee Lamb gets a slight boost from this. But overall, very sad news from Blake Jarwin. I expected big things from him this year, and so did Dallas from the sounds of it on the stream last night.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb ended up with 6 targets yesterday, so you like to see that. He was definitely a lot more active than I thought even he would be in that game, so that was nice to see. So, yes, I agree with that. Johnny, Le'Veon Bell rushed for 6 times for 14 yards, and he had 2 receptions for 32 before pulling up with a hamstring injury. And I believe Adam Gase's comment was that he shouldn't have left Le'Veon Bell in that long and that it looked bad on the field. So this will be interesting in 2 ways. One, to see what's going to happen with Le'Veon Bell. To see, you obviously drafted him with high capital if you drafted him. Hopefully you didn't, and you avoided this one. But if you did, it'll be interesting to see him come back. It'll be too interesting to see what Adam Gase does with him bringing him back. Like if he sits him when he shouldn't. So keep an eye on that one. And
Frank Gore,
I'm gonna be writing about Frank Gore in the waiver wire article. We're gonna talk about Frank Gore tomorrow on the waiver wire show, but
yeah, him and Balash have a lot of fun. P. Ryan is still injured.
Uninspiring backfield, though, to say the least.
Very much so. Very much so.
Boston Scott, Johnny, left the field with was escorted to the locker room with an apparent injury. It's not very clear what this is. We'll get a lot more news today, guys, with these things coming out, so we'll try to be active on Twitter. Yeah, let you guys know.
Not a major big game for Boston Scott. A little bit disappointing. 9 carries, 35 yards. For Boston Scott. But yeah, we will want to be tuned in for that, because if that's the case, then yeah, that's going to be bad.
Yeah, so we also had Marlon Mack.
Oh.
Hey.
Oh, we got
already getting sponsored.
Yeah.
Today, well, we still don't know, but they believe in Indianapolis that Marlon Mack tore his Achilles. He immediately grabbed at the Achilles, went down kind of on his own, popped back up, and limped pretty heavily off the field. So that is the belief. He did not come back to the game. You saw a lot of Naheim Hines. You saw a lot of Jonathon Taylor. We'll get into that. But, yeah, Marlon Mack looking like he could be done. So if you invested that middle to late round pick on him, hopefully it was just a depth piece, and you'll be pivoting there. Michael Thomas did get rolled up on late, but we still haven't heard any other word out of Saints camp on Michael Thomas, if it's a significant ankle injury or what's going on. He was said to be walking fine in the locker room, but the trainers had yet to get to him. So let's see what happens early this week with Michael Thomas. Obviously, he had a disappointing game, but should be in a get-right position against the Raiders this week, so hopefully he can get back on the field. Other than that, Johnny, I don't have any much more news and notes that we've got concrete.
The last slang was just George Kittle avoiding what looked to be a serious injury. Came back on the field, so hopefully we don't get any news on George Kittle partially tearing anything today. That would be bad, but it looked okay because he came back in the game, but not a good bendy knee for George Kittle. But I don't want to just talk about all the depressing injuries, Travis. That's the bad part of football. Let's talk about the exciting stuff. We got comments busting off. We appreciate you guys in the comments. Calvin Ridley mentioned that explosion. That was insane. We knew he was a touchdown monster, but man, that was wild.
Yeah,
but Travis,
Calvin Ridley getting after it, and a lot of that came as the Falcons were trying to claw their way back into that game. Julio had his day too, and Russell Gage looked good. Russell Gage is the guy I'm going to be looking at in the waiver wire article to let people know, like, he could be the beneficiary of Hooper leaving town and not so much Hayden Hurst. Like, it is week 1, but that's how that one looked. But we're going to talk our reaction, some of our biggest things that we saw and we took away from week 1. So, Johnny, I'll kick it to you for your first topic, something that really was pressing on you after week 1 that you wanted to share with Whisper Nation. And kind of, let's talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so all offseason, the major concern was, okay, DeAndre Hopkins is now with the Arizona Cardinals. However, we know that history shows that a new quarterback and a new wide receiver struggle. And usually that happens for about a year, and then they pick it back up, and that wide receiver picks up where he left off. And there was this big dilemma as to whether or not to believe it with DeAndre Hopkins, because we've seen it before with DeAndre Hopkins in Houston, where he went through the quarterback carousel and he was still a really good wide receiver. But I still had my concerns. I wasn't fully bought in that DeAndre Hopkins, because of a lot of his routes are comebacks and their fades, and that is timing. And DeAndre Hopkins has missed a lot of time in practice as well. So I had my concerns, but all of that was definitely negated week 1 because Kyler Murray targeted DeAndre Hopkins 16 times yesterday, where Hopkins caught a career high, not just season high, career high of 14 receptions for 151 yards, no touchdowns. He came real close, Travis, I'm not going to lie. I was a little happy he came a little bit short because I needed Drake to get me the touchdown instead. But that was personal. That was, but we got in there. It was good. But DeAndre Hopkins looked good. There was only a couple of I'll have to watch the film completely, but it seemed on the connection between Kyler and Hopkins, they seemed to be pretty good. There was only a couple connections where they were, mistimed or whatever. So moving forward, this is a great sign for DeAndre Hopkins, right?
Oh, yeah, fantastic sign. This is exactly what you wanted to see if you're a DeAndre Hopkins truther, if you're drafting him in the second round. Unfortunately, I didn't get any shares of DeAndre Hopkins because I had some of those similar concerns. But here's the thing about it that I really liked. At the postgame, you had DeAndre Hopkins talking up Kyler Murray and saying that when he walked in the door here, he knew it was going to be a different vibe here. He saw the work that Kyler Murray put in, and he was very appreciative of that. And then on the flip side, you had Kyler Murray saying that, me and DeAndre Hopkins have aspirations to be the best to ever do it. And so I think that's all good news when you hear that, especially when you see him chucking the ball to him with such volume, 16 targets, 14 catches. That right there is wide receiver one back to DeAndre Hopkins getting the volume we appreciate him getting. And who's the biggest person to not benefit from that? It looks like Christian Kirk. It looks like Christian Kirk is a guy that we thought would break out, and maybe it's too early. It's week one.
It's week one. He had Richard Sherman on him. I'm not.
But
pulling
I
the
will
panic
say,
yet, but
if you're looking at games where Kyler feels like he has to get the ball moving, it looks like it's funneled all the way through DeAndre Hopkins here.
I mean, it would make sense that Arizona would target the second corner over, and then they would put Christian Kirk on what would be presumably 49ers' best corner and Richard Sherman. Christian Kirk still saw 5 targets. That's a healthy. I would need to check the air yardage to see on that, because that'll be another indicator as to whether or not you should keep. But definitely, I'm not giving up on Christian Kirk yet, just because of 1 week of what we saw. That was probably
no. I'm not advising to give up on Christian Kirk, but I'm just saying we got to start looking at the storylines and what we thought. And Christian Kirk breaking out this season is a little bit in danger.
Right.
It's just a little bit in danger. I would be keeping an eye on how that breaks out.
Yes.
So I want to talk a little bit. We mentioned Marlon Mack and the Achilles. And, of course, this is unfortunate, and you don't ever want to root for a player's injury. But what we've seen now is it's opened the door clearly for Jonathon Taylor, maybe even Naheim Hines from the way he was being used in this game. Tom Pelissero says the Colts fear that, Marlon Mack has torn his Achilles. That's per him and Mike Garafolo from NFL Network. And so just a little bit of the breakdown here, Johnny. Obviously, with Mack out of the game, this team did not carry the ball a lot. Only 22 total team carries here. But the breakdown was Naheim Hines with 7, Marlon Mack with 4, Jonathon Taylor with 9. So right there off the bat, even with a Mack in there, obviously he left early. Jonathon Taylor out carrying the other backs there. The weird thing was seeing Naheim Hines in the red zone, getting short yardage carries, getting goal line carries. He did get a rushing touchdown, and he did get a receiving touchdown. So he did have a big day, Naheim Hines, that is. But then you look at the receptions, Johnny. Jonathon Taylor with 6 targets, 6 receptions, tied for the team high. Tied for the second. Naheim Hines had the most catches because he had 8 targets, 8 catches. But what I liked here is Jonathon Taylor produced him in the receiving category.
Yeah,
got 67 yards there. Had a really beautiful screen that he almost scored on
his first touch of the game. That's the other thing, Travis. A lot of the catches for Jonathon Taylor came after Hines was out. Like, Jonathon Taylor was getting no work. In fact, I was kind of panicking because Jonathon Taylor had no work through up until, I think he had maybe 1 catch up until the Marlon Mack injury. He had 1 play. Which was the nice screenplay. But other than that, and it might not, I have to rewind the tape. It actually might not have been that. So there was some real concern. But now that Marlon Mack is presumably done for the season, and this really opens the door for a guy like Jonathon Taylor, because here's what we see. If you are on the field with Phillip Rivers, it doesn't matter who you are. You better be able to catch, which it looks like, Jonathon Taylor did a really good job of catching. yesterday.
Caught all his targets.
Caught all of his targets. So if you are on the field, you're not coming off the field with Phillip Rivers to go between plays. So Jonathon Taylor has a huge upside now that we thought we were going to have to wait into the season to see, and now we're getting it really young into the season. I think you're going to go after Naheim Hines on the waiver wire because you got to do that. It's a running back who's
especially in PPR.
In PPR, correct. But there might be an opportunity here to almost buy a little bit low on Jonathon Taylor because of the fact he didn't have a mega game. The fact that most people would probably only see the highlights and see Naheim Hines carrying the ball this time. But when you look at the box score and you look at the stats, Jonathon Taylor actually had the much more efficient and better game, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts saw that and they're like, okay, we need to get this guy on the field more. Now that Marlon Mack's out of the picture, let's just do it. And so a lot of people are going to go after Naheim Hines this week, but it might be actually a good idea, even though all this has happened, to go after Jonathon Taylor still.
Yeah, I don't mind that strategy. I think it's going to be hard. That window's going to slam shut soon.
Fast.
So you might as well try it and see what you can do there. Johnny, we had a few QBs in this offseason switch places, and so today you wanted to talk a little bit about how that shook out. Take Whisper Nation through what you have for them here.
So we all know the basic two that we'll talk about here are obviously the big ones, right? Tom Brady and Cam Newton switching places. Teddy Bridgewater, he was a new quarterback in a new place. He did solid. He did a really good job there in Carolina. But we're not going to talk about him on this show. We're going to talk about Cam Newton, and we're going to talk about Tom Brady. And the big knock, we'll start with Tom Brady, right? The big thing over there was Tom Brady is a systems quarterback. He is not a good quarterback. He's just a good systems quarterback. And so everyone was really interested in this season, what's going to happen, what's going to happen with these storylines. Fantasy owners were tantalized by just all the weapons that Tampa Bay has at their disposal, Travis. And, early, Brady did not disappoint. He took the very first drive that they got, went straight down, and then they got the goal line, and he said, "No, I'm not giving it to Ronald Jones.
It's like he saw Cam Newton earlier get a rushing touchdown. He's like, I want to do the Superman thing.
Yeah,
like let me run it in.
And for a second, I thought he was going to be able to do it, but then the Saints defense turned up. Tom Brady ended up 23 completions on 36 attempts for only 239 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. A QBR of only 34.6. So definitely majorly disappointing for Tom Brady. He had a pick 6 in this game, which turns out to be his 3rd straight pick 6 in a row. And I think that this could cause a lot of fantasy owners to panic. You could see Tom Brady on waiver wires in a lot of your leagues because people are going to be nervous about it. Travis, how do you feel about it? Are you nervous about Cam Newton? And seeing what you saw, Tom Brady, and seeing what you saw in Carolina, seeing the really big mental errors that he had, or do you think this is just, once again, this is kind of like the preseason? We have to kind of adjust these first couple of weeks for that.
I think that's a lot of what happened yesterday. Obviously, he's in a new place. He's shaking off a little bit of rust with this team, learning the way things are going. You heard Bruce Arians in the post-game conference talk about one of the picks being a miscommunication with Mike Evans, where he thought Mike was going one way and Mike was going the other way, and actually Mike was right because he knows Bruce Arians' playbook maybe just a little bit better. Not saying, that he's smarter or anything than Tom Brady, but that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about little mental errors that should get fixed, and who's going to be better at fixing those than Tom Brady and Bruce Arians together. So I would just say, ease up on the hate here. I don't think that there's going to be a big letdown here for Brady and this offense. And they're going to be, they've got a decent schedule coming up here. They've got the Panthers and then the Broncos that's a nice couple get-right games back-to-back. You like to see that. But let's talk about Cam Newton. So Cam Newton is the guy replacing Tom Brady, the guy that he told, or the guy that she told you not to worry about, is Cam Newton. So Cam Newton came out and balled out in that game.
See, I don't think Tom Brady was sending Julian Edelman any text messages after yesterday's game because Cam Newton straight up balled out. Now, he didn't have the best passing game. You look at that, 15 for 19 for 155 yards, no passing touchdowns. So not major numbers there, but where he was so efficient and effective was on the ground. He had 15 carries, which was a career high, or tied a career high for him. Was the highest rushing by a quarterback in New England on a debut. So 15 carries for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns, Travis. And 2 of those touchdowns, one was, like I believe like a 5-yarder, but the other one was like a 10 or 11-yard naked boot out, and Cam was just determined to get in the end zone there. So this is what we thought we were going to see as far as the rushing aspect around the goal line. We were concerned that Cam was going to take away the goal line carries for Sony Michel, for guys like James White. But I don't know if this is going to be more of the norm for them. I think this was a Bill Belichick saw that there was a weakness that Miami had in guarding mobile quarterbacks, and so they took advantage of that aspect. I don't think next week when they play, who did they play next week?
So they play Seattle on Sunday night, and so we'll kind of see how that goes. You'll have Jamal Adams, who was all over the field for Seattle in week 1. But then after that, they play the Raiders. So could have a similar breakdown of what happened with Miami against the Raiders there. I like Cam. I want to see what's going on. He was all over Edelman this week. So there was things that looked very similar in his game to Tom Brady with the Edelman love. But then there was a whole other dynamic with what he was able to do there. Do want to get talking a little bit about the tight ends that I have a little bit of a take on. But before that, Gio Pradana is asking, is Kittle injury bad? Gio, actually, he came back to that game, and he told the media afterwards, I feel fantastic. So either he's made of steel.
He's going to lie that he feels fantastic. But George Kittle is a monster. Like, he doesn't care about, he cares about pain, but he will play through it. He is a professional football player, if I've seen one. The dude is tough. So yeah, it looks so much scarier on tape than it seemed to be, which is good. Good news. Never like to see that.
So there was a report that came out Sunday morning from Ian Rappaport that the Zach Ertz tensions were really high between Zach Ertz and Eagles GM. And then we turn around and see Dallas Goddard lead the team in targets. Okay, Dallas Goddard, 9 targets, 8 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown. Now, Zach Ertz did score a touchdown, but he only had 3 catches on 7 targets. His average was 6 yards per reception. Did get a touchdown there early on. But with what's going on with this receiving core, Deshaun Jackson was in and out of the field he was banged up himself. Dallas Goddard seems to be emerging here as an option. He'll definitely be somebody we bring up in the waiver wire column. Somebody that we talk about tomorrow on the Waiver Wire show. Somebody you should be looking at, especially if you're a Blake Jarwin owner, or you're going after Blake Jarwin, or you have to replace Blake Jarwin. So I just wanted to point out here that I think that Dallas Goddard is kind of one of the true weapons in this offense you should be investing in. And actually, Jalen Rieger. So Jalen Rieger had 4 targets, not a lot, 1 catch for 55 yards. But that's what we're talking about here. 1 catch for 55 yards. And he had a couple go routes that
there was
Wentz
another
just
one.
missed him.
There was another one late in the game that would have definitely been like an 80-yard touchdown if Carson Wentz would have put it on the money. Like, he burned the corner, and there was nothing but him and green grass between and the ball that sailed over him was the only other thing. But Rieger looked good. Here's what changed. Oh my gosh, I watched this video on Twitter yesterday before the game, and it was Rieger warming up, and they showed the acceleration. I don't know if it was at camp or warming up yesterday, but they showed the acceleration of Rieger. Good gracious, that dude is beyond fast. And so yes, Rieger is definitely a guy that he's on your waiver. He'll be on the waiver wire column this week. Definitely going to be fun watching Rieger and Carson Wentz hook up for sure. But getting back to the Dallas Goddard thing, what you were talking about, Travis, the thing I like about Dallas Goddard, and I almost like him more than Ertz, for this fact is look at that average, 12.6 yards per reception compared to 6. That completely takes away Zach Ertz's upside, and Goddard now has all that upside.
I like what Goddard is because he's got kind of a combination of all those deep threats they have and Zach Ertz for Carson Wentz, right? He's this seam stretcher for Carson Wentz, but also can be the security blanket. I mean, he caught 9 balls for him. So I just think there's a lot going on there to be taking notice of, and Dallas Goddard could emerge as the #1 target in this offense. We've seen tight end lead this position already, or this team before, and Dallas Goddard could smash his ADP this year. All right, Johnny, moving on to your third and final take here, or reaction to week 1. This one's a big one.
This
is a rookie back here, so tell the people about J.K. Dobbins over in Baltimore.
I know it's a little bit of a surprise that I didn't put on here DeAndre Swift topic. I don't want to talk about the poor man. I'll leave him alone today. But J.K. Dobbins comes out. Now, it was reported that he would get around 5 touches in the game, which is why, I didn't recommend to a lot of people to start him. Neither did Travis. Although Travis did tell me that I should start him in my league, and I should have listened to him. But I was worried about the 5 touches. What can he do? And to the surprise of fantasy owners, he got 7 touches. But those 7 touches were probably the most valuable 7 touches you can get, because a lot of those touches came, Travis, in the all-important red zone. So my question to you, to Whisper Nation, as a rhetorical surprise question, maybe, as a share of excitement of what we could potentially see from Baltimore this season, is J.K. Dobbins the goal line back for Baltimore? Because he had 2 carries in the red zone last year. He took all Mark Ingram only had 1 red zone carry, I believe. And J.K. Dobbins took both of the goal line carries.
Yeah, this is a situation, and if you look at the split, I mean, Mark Ingram only had 3 more carries than J.K. Dobbins, 10-7 here. And J.K. Dobbins outperformed Mark Ingram as far as his yards per carry. And this small sample size, very, 1 game, we're not going to overreact here. I would be okay with Ingram right now, but if you get, here's the idea. If you're a Mark Ingram owner, what we saw to Dobbins solidifies to me that they like this kid, they like the role for him, and they want to continue, continue pursuing that role and see what he can do.
Yeah.
So that means that Mark Ingram is on borrowed time in my mind as the lead back in this offense. And so if he's on borrowed time, you need a Mark Ingram game to happen within the next few weeks, and you need to turn and flip Mark Ingram if you can in redraft leagues.
Yeah.
Because what we saw out of Dobbins was, hey, we're not afraid to use him in the red zone, and we are not afraid to do that and have him be the guy. And on this team, a red zone back is going to be very valuable if he is the guy getting the carries in the red zone. So, yeah, keep an eye on that. But Dobbins truthers like myself, we're excited. Pretty big week 1. Now, Nick Chubb truthers may be looking at this last week with a little bit of a But it's 1 week, so we'll have to see how it goes. I just wanted to point out that Kareem Hunt not only carried Nick Chubb 13-10, he outproduced Nick Chubb, 13 carries for 72 yards. Okay, Nick Chubb's 10 carries for 60 yards. Neither of them scored a rushing touchdown here. You look at the receiving portion. Nick Chubb, 1 target, caught it. 1 target for 6 yards. I remember when he caught that too. Johnny says, "Look, he could catch."
Yeah, I said, I
thought he wasn't.
Nick Chubb doesn't catch football.
Yeah, he doesn't catch footballs. Kareem Hunt, 6 targets though. Caught 4 of them for 9 yards. Not very deep targets from our guy Baker Mayfield there.
But it's not a good game overall.
It was not a good game, and the breakdown does have you a little bit concerned. I think this is going to just prove that this could be a frustrating backfield based on the way that they use these guys. J.J. Zacharyson pointing out that Nick Chubb finished today seeing 41.7% of Cleveland's running back fullback rushes. His single game low last year was 62%.
Here's what I will say on the whole game. Now, I got to watch the video back and everything. But I'm fairly confident that through the first quarter and a half, there was very little Kareem Hunt. I think once the game got out of hand, they were like, okay, we'll switch to Kareem Hunt because we don't want to get Nick Chubb injured. We can do this. The game is out of hand. But before that had happened, it was just all Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb was getting the bulk of the carry. So the box score is going to scare some people off. I think that this might be an opportunity to buy low on Nick Chubb because here's the reality. Yeah, Nick Chubb only got 10 carries. Yeah, Nick Chubb only took those 10 carries for 60 yards, but that's 6 yards per carry against Baltimore Ravens. So I think
and Kareem Hunt got 6.5.
No, he had 5.5. He had a 5.5 average. So I do think that Nick Chubb owners are going to be panicked, and they're rightfully so. There's a little bit of panicking going on, but I don't think the full box score represents exactly how this is going to break down because, once again, I'll go back and I'll watch the tape, and I'm going to look at how many snaps before this game got out of hand that Nick Chubb was truly in because that will reveal more than just saying, hey, at the end of the game, the box score, because this box score is 38-6. This game was over after. Yeah,
and they've got
quarter.
a nice matchup against the Bengals. Then they've got the Washington football team.
Yeah, so.
But then they play the Cowboys, Colts, Steelers. So we'll see how this kind of shakes out for them. I would just, I think it just reiterates what we've kind of been saying all offseason, that Kareem Hunt's existence limits Nick Chubb's upside. That's just kind of where we're at with that one. Johnny.
Yeah.
That's it for us.
That's all I got.
The reaction topics this week. Let's see what's going on in the comments. Be a little bit here.
Yeah.
Jeff Love says Chubb is about to be the league's most undervalued running back.
Yep.
Could definitely still get there. We will see how that shakes out. All right. So if you guys want to leave a comment, leave a like. Let us know what your biggest reaction was from week 1. We would appreciate that. Otherwise, I'm Big Travie. That's Johnny Game Time Hicks. That's been week 1 reaction. We're the Fantasy Whispers, and we're out.
Peace.